Hello, and welcome to this new episode of the QueerYourEU podcast. I am Remy from Forbidden Colors, and together we will debrief the actions of the EU institutions for LGBTIQ plus people in the last 5 years. In today's episode, we will focus on the role and the actions of the Council of the EU, as we will be joined shortly by the spokesperson of the Belgian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nicolas Fierens. To explain everything we need to know, I am joined by my colleague Vincent and Remy, an export, an ex.
Don't stop. Now you don't stop. Once you launch, because we do one take. So after, we don't stop.
In one take?
Yeah, we do one take for everything. So
Okay,
so we don't stop, we don't cut. So
okay,
as soon as you're past that, there's no stopping.
okay.
Okay?
Hello, and welcome to this new episode of the Queer Your EU podcast. I am Remy from Forbidden Colors, and together we will debrief the actions of the EU institutions for LGBTIQ plus people during the last 5 years. In today's episode, we will focus on the role and the actions of the Council of the EU, as we will be joined shortly by the Belgian Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson, Nicolas Fierens. To explain everything we need to know, I am joined by my colleague Vincent Rayon, an expert in the EU institutions and LGBTIQ plus rights. How are you?
I'm very good, Remy, and it's a pleasure to be with you for this new episode.
Before we are joined by our guests, can you remind us what is the Council of the EU?
Yeah, so the Council of the EU is one of the two institutions that adopt EU laws, and compared to the other one, the European Parliament, that most of the citizens know very well, the Council of the EU is quite unknown, although it has more power in the end than the European Parliament.
Who is represented there?
So if the European Parliament represents the citizens of the EU, the Council of the EU represents the 27 member states of the Union. So it is composed of the 27 ministers from the member states in one area. For example, the Council of the EU on Agriculture is composed by the 27 Minister of Agriculture from all the member states of the EU that come together to sit and adopt the EU law.
You said that the Council of the EU has more power than the European Parliament. Can you explain why?
Yes, so when the European Commission proposes a new EU law, it can follow different legislative routes. The most common is what we call the ordinary legislative procedure, where the Council of the EU and the European Parliament act at the same level. They both discuss and amend the text, and at the end, they have to come together to find a compromise to adopt the EU law. However, some texts go through other routes, which are called the special legislative procedures. And in this case, it's only the Council of the EU that amends and adopts the EU law, whereas the European Parliament is only consulted or asked for its consent.
And this is relevant for LGBTIQ plus topics.
Yes, because as we described in the Queer Your EU report, and as we'll discuss today, a lot of EU law proposals concerning the rights of LGBTIQ plus people fall under these special legislative procedures, where the Council of the EU has to act at unanimity. It means that all the 27 member states need to agree on the compromise for it to be adopted. And this means that all of them got a veto right.
So you said that the minister votes and adopts the texts. Do they also negotiate them?
So most of the work in the Council of the EU is done by counselors, diplomats that work on a weekly basis through a lot of different meetings to discuss the text based on the instruction they get from their capital. So they are doing the technical work. When the ministers come to Brussels to adopt the text, most of the discussion have been done. The text can be fully agreed already. So the ministers only come to adopt formally the text. Or if there are remaining issues, they need to discuss them and agree at the highest level.
But if all member states are negotiating, who is actually the negotiator?
So the Council of the EU doesn't have a presidency, doesn't have a neutral party organizing the discussion. It has been decided from the beginning of the EU that the member states will play that role. So that's what we call the rotating presidency of the EU.
And how does that work?
So every 6 months, in January and July, one of the member states takes over the presidency of the Council of the EU. This means that during these 6 months, this member state is acting as the honest broker, negotiating the file, so getting the position from the 26 other member states and proposing some compromise until a text is ready for adoption. And in this context, the presidency doesn't really put their opinion in the text. They act as a neutral person.
Hmm. Every 6 months? That's short.
Yes, it's a short time. So the presidencies are organized in trios, which means that three member states act together around one trio, so that they can plan their priorities for a year and a half. Currently, the trio was made up of Spain, who had the presidency of the Council in the last 6 months of 2023, Belgium, who has the presidency now from January to June 2024, and Hungary, who will take over the presidency of the Council on the 1st of July 2024.
And this is the reason why we have invited the spokesperson of the Belgian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to talk about the Council of the EU.
Exactly, because right now Belgium is assuming the presidency of the Council, which means that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is very much involved in the negotiation of the text that we will discuss.
Thank you, Vincent. This is very clear to me. I think we have all the information now to welcome our guests.
Thanks.
It is my pleasure now to introduce our guests. Nicolas Fierens, you are the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of Belgium, currently assuming the presidency of the Council of the EU. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We know that the presidency of the Council of the EU is a heavy task. So my first question for you would be, how are you?
Well, thank you very much, Remy and Vincent. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. Indeed, we are now nearing the end of our presidency. I think that it was a big success. Many legislative proposals have been adopted. Of course, we will wait till the very end. We are still some issues which we'd like to solve in the coming weeks. I'm doing quite well. Really happy to be here with you today. Probably the highlight of the last months would be the first participation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Brussels Pride with both our ministers. It was very important for us since we participate to many prides abroad, actually, through our embassies and consulates. And here, for the first time, it was really symbolic for us, alongside the EU, to be part of this Brussels Pride with many people, as you know. So it was for us really a pride, actually, and I hope we can continue to do so in the coming years.
Well, first, what we wanted to discuss with you are the legislative files that are concerning LGBTIQ plus people that are currently in discussion in the Council of the EU. So the first one is a proposal that the Commission put forward now 2 years ago that would extend the list of EU crimes to include hate speech and hate crime. And this would be very useful to protect all EU citizens from hate speech, hate crime, especially discrimination against LGBTIQ plus people. So can you tell us if Belgium has been able to make progress on this file and what is the situation currently in the Council?
Yes, no, thank you. This is a very important subject. And I think that first it's important to remind that hate speech and hate crimes are really contrary to the fundamental values on which the European Union was founded. And it's also a direct threat to the safety and the well-being of all EU citizens. In the EU, almost every day, we have people who are targeted because of their race, their religion, their ethnicity, but also the sexual orientation. This is, of course, unacceptable and a violation of their rights. So indeed, we must widen the scope of those serious crimes, the so-called Euro crimes, to include hate speech and hate crime. And the extension of this list would allow the European Commission to present new legislative proposals to punish these crimes. Unfortunately, as you said, there is still no agreement on this issue at the EU level. During the presidency, the necessary unanimity could not be achieved. Some states are still opposing it. And so we, as Belgian presidency, what we have done is that we have tried to come with a new approach, a new strategy in order to circumvent this opposition by focusing on the Victim Rights Directive. Why? Because victims of hate crimes are also relevant within the framework of this victim rights directive. And we really hope that this new path, this new approach will allow us to find a common ground, common agreement to advance this issue. And last but not least, I would also like to underline that for us, what is also important is to address the root causes of hate crime and hate speech. And this include promoting education and awareness, fostering dialogue and understanding between communities.
The second file concerns the recognition of parenthood throughout the Union. The European Parliament adopted its position in December 2023. The file is now fully in the hands of the Council. How is the file progressing?
Well, as you know, it's a very difficult file, and here Belgium, as EU presidency, is really playing fully its role of honest broker. We have been working really hard to find a consensus among member states on this subject, which requires unanimity. As you know, the positions of the member states are different, so the recognition of parenthood across border is not always clear. Differences in legal recognition between member states can lead to significant challenges for families. And the proposal for a council regulation provides for additional judicial protection for LGBTIQ plus families. It includes the recognition of parenthood regardless of the child family type, including children with two same-sex parents. A number of contentious issues remain, such as the provision on surrogacy. National legislation are very different, so it's very difficult. The Minister of Justice is actually working on it and will work to move this issue forward. At the next meeting, the last meeting under our presidency of the Council of Justice Ministers in 2 weeks. But here, of course, we would be really pleased and happy if an agreement could be reached on presidency. But I think we need to remain realistic. There is still a long way to go, but of course we will continue till the very end to put this very important fight for us.
Finally, we've seen in a council meeting early May that there was a discussion on the Horizontal Equality Directive, which is a directive that has been blocked in the council since 2008. So we are very hopeful that the file might move forward finally. Are you also hopeful that enough progress has been made for an adoption before the end of the Belgian presidency?
Well, it's true, as you said, that discussion were blocked in 2008. We, as presidency, here again, we have tried to come with a compromise text in order to, get everyone together and hopefully to reach a consensus and an agreement by the end of our presidency. So we hope that we will be able to do so, but I prefer to remain cautious, and we will see if we manage to get there. Hopefully, yes, we'll see.
Is there any initiative from Belgium to adopt the council conclusions on LGBTQ plus topics?
Well, not as such, but as I've underlined, we have achieved a lot of progress on different issues. And I can assure you that Belgium will continue its efforts to make progress on LGBTIQ plus rights, and not only at EU level, but also in international fora, for example, also within the Human Rights Council. As you know, Belgium is one of the 47 member states currently, and will continue also to push these files in the Human Rights Council. And also just to underline that we organized a high-level conference on Hideout on May 17th here in Brussels to discuss the European Commission strategy to promote the rights of LGBTI plus people and also the future engagement of member states together with the European Parliament and the Commission to advance those rights. And last but not least, we also co-signed the joint ministerial declaration at the initiative of the Netherlands on Hideout within the framework of the Hideout Plus Forum 2024.
We can take a break. Yeah, it's break time. Good. So it's going well.
Well, so far so
Yeah.
good.
So
But
far,
I
so
hope I don't speak
good.
too fast.
No,
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 no.
no.
Okay,
And it doesn't
okay.
look like you're reading.
No,
Okay,
no,
okay,
no.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about Hungary now.
Yeah, you start with Hungary. Yeah.
But maybe I will go till the question because it's weird if you can ask the follow-up question.
Uh,
So I will yeah, I will do it till there till there, and then you can ask about the voting
Article
rights.
7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? Yes. So in June 2021, Hungary adopted an anti-LGBT propaganda law, and we've been following this with forbidden colors since that moment. Um, okay, we'll start again. So in June 2021, Hungary adopted an anti-LGBT propaganda law, and Forbidden Colors have been following what's happening on Hungary and this law since then. Belgium was one of the first countries to react at that time, and the first member state to announce its support to the European Commission's lawsuit against Hungary, launched last year. It has been known as one of the member states that is blocking the adoption of text that we just discussed, and is the one country that is member of your trio, taking the presidency in July, just after Belgian presidency. Is there anything that can be done to make progress with Hungary on LGBTIQ plus topics?
Yes, if you allow me, I would like a little bit to elaborate on indeed what we have done, because we are really concerned by what is happening in Hungary. And so at the initiative of Belgium, 18 EU member states published a joint statement to express their deep concern regarding the developments in Hungary and in particular the so-called family law in Hungary. It was a very strong signal, and it was important for us to send this strong signal because this law discriminates against LGBTQI plus people under the pretext of protecting children. And as you said, we are also the first to announce that we would support the Commission in its referral of Hungary to the Court of Justice of the European Union and other countries if follow suit. And this particular example showed a broader regression of fundamental rights and value in Hungary. And for us, it's really clear that the European Union is first and foremost a union of values. And when these values are not respected, it is really our duty to act. And it's what we have done. It's what we'll continue to do. So, of course, as you said, what can we do beyond those joint statements, beyond supporting the Commission in its lawsuit against Hungary in Luxembourg? What can we do? So there are many possible ways to uphold our values. And in the case of Hungary, we have activated the famous Article 7 of the treaty, allowing member states to hold hearings, highlighting the problems in Hungary. In the long term, Article 7 should lead to the withdrawal of the right to vote of Hungary. But here again, the problem is the unanimity rule is indeed, there is a blockage. And so currently we can't go further. But we have also introduced a budgetary conditionality, retaining EU funds for cohesion or the recovery and resilience plan. And it actually works because indeed the Hungarian government had no other choice but to adopt reform if he wants to access the EU funds. And we should really maintain this system of conditionality in the future. These are the different options we have been working on, and as I said, we will continue to do so.
So what could be done at the EU level and the member state level to improve the support for the full respect of the fundamental rights of LGBTIQ plus people in the European Union?
No, it's a very important question, and we believe that this question goes beyond the rights of LGBTIQ people. We must do really everything possible to ensure that all human rights are fully respected, including those of minorities. And to do this, we need to think about how to strengthen the EU's toolbox to uphold its values. So what have we done during our presidency? We have commissioned a report from IDEA International to explore concrete ways of doing this. And they came up actually with a lot of interesting ideas, such as, for example, strengthening budgetary conditionality and broadening its scope. And probably one other example, which we think is really interesting, is the need to engage much more with civil society. Civil society organizations are really our eyes and ears on the ground. They can report, they can sound alarm when they believe that European values are not respected, that the rule of law is not respected, and that member states, the Commission, have to intervene. And so this report is a very good starting point to continue our discussion in that regard.
Yeah, in the Queer Your EU report that we published, we formulate some recommendation, and one of them is the evolution of the EU treaties, because right now, for example, in the EU treaties, only the ground of sexual orientation is put under the discrimination aspects. So we are advocating for gender equality, gender identity, gender expression, sex characteristic to be introduced. We're also advocating for the end of unanimity in the Council on the file that deal with discriminations and the rights of LGBTIQ plus people. So what is the position of Belgium on this potential evolution of EU treaties in the future?
Um, Yes, thank you for the question. We are, of course, ready to consider any proposal that is conducive to better protection of LGBTIQ plus person. This being said, of course, we have to be again here realistic, and we have a preference for proposal within the framework of the current treaties. Because treaty change, as you know, is long, it's complicated, and it is also with a totally uncertain outcome. So we are ready to work on proposals if we find unanimity to change the treaties, of course. But let's try to work also on other ways to try to indeed advance all the issues that you have mentioned.
We see the rise of the so-called anti-gender movements in Europe, but also globally, we are working with Forbidden Colors specifically to counter that movement. Is it still a priority for Belgium too? Your ministry supported the United for Diversity initiative from Forbidden Colors last October. Are there any other initiatives that you are currently working on?
Yes, and for us, these anti-gender movements are really a cause of concern. They threaten our democratic gains. We see that in Russia, in Hungary, but also in the United States. We have to be quite cautious with the possible re-election of Donald Trump next November in the US. And our embassies abroad, it's part of the mandate really to defend the European values, the Belgian values, human rights, and fundamental freedoms. And so they are confronted with these very dangerous anti-gender movements. And therefore, we have decided to organize a training for our diplomats abroad and also for our colleagues here at the MFA in Brussels, so to better make them understand the origins, the goals, the strategies also of these movements, with the aim, of course, to better countering them. Um, and in addition to that, here too, the Belgian presidency is trying to make progress. For example, the recently adopted Council conclusions on democratic and electoral resilience provide an overview of all the challenges and tools available to the EU and its member states to tackle what we called foreign information manipulation and interference, because we know, of course, that these movements also spread disinformation, and it's important to be ready to tackle tackle it. As I said, these conclusions were formally adopted last May during the last meeting of the General Affairs Council, and it was also a success for us. We are well aware of the fact that LGBTQI plus communities, people or organizations are specifically targeted by these movements around the world, and we are determined not to let that happen.
With that, it is time to conclude our discussion. I want to thank you again very much, Nicolas Fierens, for taking the time to come and discuss with us today, knowing how busy your schedule is. And good luck for the last weeks of the Belgian presidency. Also, thank you to Vincent for joining me today, and thank you all for listening.